5.9 multiplication of monomials and binomials. And actually the lesson I'm going to do right now will be multiplication of any two polynomials. So it will work with any two things that you have to multiply. First, just talking about with monomials. Anytime you're multiplying with monomials, all you are doing is distributing. And you distribute the monomial. Remember, monomial is the single term. This is a binomial. Inside the parentheses, there's two terms separated by the plus. Anytime you're dealing with a monomial times anything, all you're looking at is distribution. So again, I want to see this step, even though some people don't think they need to do it. 4 times 2x and 4x times 4. Remember from the beginning lessons of chapter 5, you can put together the things that are similar and multiply them. So 4 times 2 would be 8. And remember, x to the first power and x to the first power, two bases with two exponents, we add them. 4 times 4 is 16x. Okay, so now let's look at a monomial with any polynomial. So it doesn't matter how many terms you have, you're still going to distribute that monomial. So 5s times 8t to the fourth minus 5s times 4s squared minus 5s times 9t minus 5s times 11. So now let's do the multiplication. You could separate it out just like I talked about in the last problem, but you can also, at this point, you should be able to do this part in your head and say 5 times 8 gives me the 40. And then you have s and t. These are two totally different things, so you're going to have to just write them down. S and t to the fourth power. Negative 5 times positive 4 is negative 20. Remember, two bases, they're both s's. This was an s and a t. This is an s and an s. Two bases, two exponents, we add them together. Minus 5 times 9 is 45. And again, these are different bases, so we just write them down. And then 5 times 11 is 55. S. We look to make sure there's nothing we can add together and collect the like terms, and there isn't, because this is t to the fourth. So you have s to the first, t to the fourth, no other t to the fourth anywhere, s to the first. S to the third power, no other s to the third. Here's just an s and a t, not happening, and just an s. All right, now if we have to multiply two binomials, we can't easily distribute here. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you the box method. I will do another video on how to use FOIL, and you can use the method that is the one that's easiest for you. I find that the box method works all the time, and that sometimes FOIL isn't always going to work, and I'll show you that later in the lessons. So what you're going to do is, when you do the box method, you're going to make a box, and I call this the skeleton. And you're going to put the lines on the outside and these lines on the inside. Let me show you how it works. You're going to take one set of numbers and put it on this side. So it doesn't really matter which one I choose. X and a positive 3. See, it's a positive 3. X and a positive 4. If you want, you could even put the plus in there if that makes you happy. Now, this 4 is going to go to everything in this column. So it's at the top, comes down 4 and 4. Coming down this way, this is an X. It goes in everything in this column, X and X. Now coming across this way, this X goes in everything in this row, so it gives an X, and the 3 goes everywhere in that row. Now, we're doing the multiplication inside each individual square, each individual box. So an x times an x, and remember there's one power, two bases with two exponents we multiply. X times 4 is just 4x. We usually put the number first. 3 times x is just 3x, and then 3 times 4 is 12. So now we're going to add all of this together. Everything in here you see is positive, and that would make sense because all the numbers we started with were positive. So we're going to add x squared plus 4x plus 3x plus 12. So we take that final part in each box and add it together. It's the part that multiplies together and becomes. So the x times x is x squared. X squared is what I'm adding. Collecting our like terms. The only like terms we have in this problem are 4x with 3x because this is x squared and this doesn't have anything. Since it's addition, it's just straight addition. Remember, adding 3 x's and 4 x's gives us 7 x's. It doesn't change that x at all. All right, so again, we have two binomials. Now this is kind of a different looking binomial, but you'll notice that this is one term separated by a plus and a second term, so that's a binomial. One term separated by the plus and another term is a binomial. Doesn't matter which side. I usually take the first part and put it down the side, and this part and put it on the top. So 2xy is the full term. This full term is 4x. Here we have negative 2y, and here we have y squared, and it's a positive, so even if you wanted to put a plus there, you could, but you don't have to. So now remembering the fact that you are going to take that y squared, and it goes in all of that column. So I put it in here and in here. I now have a negative 2y, and it fills in this column. Negative 2y, negative 2y. Coming across, now we're looking at the rows, and each box in this row gets a 2xy, and that goes in this spot. 2xy, 2xy. And our last piece that we're looking at is that the 4x goes in this one and in this one. So now we drew our box. We filled it out. Now what we're going to do is we're going to multiply each individual box. So 2xy times y squared is going to give us this answer. Now, because it's just a little bit more involved, what I want to look at over here is 2xy times negative 2y. So a negative times a positive is a negative. 2 times 2 is 4. There's only this one x. Now look at your y's. You have y to the first and y to the first. Two y's with two exponents. I add those exponents. So I get y squared. This box right here is 2xy times y squared. Well, remember there's a 1 here. 2 times 1 is obviously 2. There's just that one x, so I just copy it over. Y to the first power and y squared. Remember, we add the exponents, so y to the third. This is all from the first part of chapter 5. So if you need to go back and review sections 1, 2, and 3 of chapter 5. Okay, this right here is 4x times negative 2y. 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. We have an x and we have a y. Two different bases, we just write them down. Here we have 4x times y squared. 4x y squared. There's nothing that's similar. There's a 1, but 4 times 1 is 4. Now we have all of the box filled out. We're looking for the answers in each box. Those are in those bottom lines. We're going to add all of those up. So minus 4xy squared, I use that negative. This is a positive, so I say plus 2xy to the third. This is a negative minus 8xy. Move that over. And then in this box, plus 4xy squared. Looking for collecting your like terms. So in this case, here's an x with a y squared. This is xy to the third. This is xy, and there's an xy squared. So we'll put those together, minus 4xy squared and plus 4xy squared. Now we'll look at the next two. This is an x with a y to the third. There's no other one, and this is just an x with a y. So 2xy to the third and minus 8xy. Now I have a positive 4y squared and a negative 4y squared. If I subtract those, I get 0. So I'm only left with 2xy to the third minus 8xy.